Hi, I'm Granny, and we're going down the rabbit hole of the brain and trauma. Accidents happen. Many years ago, while I was out jogging, somebody adjusting their radio accidentally hit me, going about 25 to 30 miles an hour, according to the police. Doctors were surprised I was alive. The back of my head hit the windshield, the front of my head hit the curb, the back of the head hit the gutter, leaving bloody traces. The damage to my body was extensive. The neurologist described my brain was damaged similarly to what happens to a baby when it is shaken violently. There were skull fractures on my forehead and the back of my head. This shaking caused damage to an artery in my neck, resulting in a blood clot moving to my brain, causing a stroke that damaged my vision, creating a scotoma. Many vertebrae damage to my neck and shoulders, my back, my knees, my feet. The most significant damage was to my brain. Chronic and massive headaches lasted for years, becoming less over time. Brain fog, lasting constantly for the first couple of years, not being able to concentrate or complete a sentence sometimes, losing track of time, space, life, chronic nausea and dizziness. The dizziness is still an issue. Short-term memory problems lasted for years. Now I get headaches, but less frequently, thank you God. And then the brain fog will only last about a day or so after the end of the headache. Constant ringing in my ears continues. There was so much damage to my forehead that the plastic surgeon had to remove all the damaged muscle and tissue in an area of about 2 inches in diameter. So for a long time in that area was just skin and skull. My kids call it my Harry Potter scar. For years I could scratch an area above my right eye and feel it in the back of my head. About 4 days after the accident, I looked at myself for the first time in the mirror. I didn't recognize myself. There was nothing in the mirror that looked like me. All I saw was a distorted human face with colors and bulges I had never seen before anywhere, especially on a face. What is so amazing to me is that through the years, my brain has adjusted, so whenever I have an itch on my forehead, I can scratch it, not feel it in other parts of my head. Also, the muscle and tissue has partially filled in that area, that large dented area on my forehead. And it's much smaller, but there's still a section that's just skull and skin. Another amazing attribute of the brain is that the large scotoma, if once that scotoma happened and I did this, I couldn't see this hand. I couldn't see. The only thing I could see over here was like a lava, or those lava lamps where it just kind of makes movement. Well, I would say it took about 5 years for that area to slowly shrink, and then now it's complete, it's fixed. Up until the moment of the accident, I would have described myself as a wife, mother, athlete, homemaker, gardener, creator, active member of the local community, PTA at the local and state level. Are you who you, or are you what you do? How do you describe yourself? And how do you describe yourself when you can't do anything that you used to be able to do? It was frightening when I thought, who am I now? I can't do anything that I did before. That's when depression nails you. When you physically and emotionally don't recognize yourself and anything about yourself, your emotions, your moods, Everything is like you woke up in somebody else's body. I think the hardest thing was that I wasn't able to be a really full-time mother like I had been. That was pretty devastating. This accident completely changed who I thought I was and how I felt about myself. I'd always described myself as what I did and what I had accomplished. About 6 months after the accident, I remember I left and it was shocking. And then it hit me that I hadn't laughed since before the accident, showing how dramatic my emotions, my personality had changed. At the 1 year mark, the team of doctors that had been caring for me told me that I was as good as I was going to get. There was nothing else they could do for me. You can imagine how upsetting that information was, because I really hadn't been able to get much of my past life back. I loved to play tennis. I had played tennis my whole life. Loved it. And I would often take my kids out for their birthdays and we would play tennis. At the 1 year mark, I decided I was going to play tennis, and I did. And I haven't since because of the amount of pain that resulted. I also tried to run. A friend and I did a 4-mile run, but my equilibrium was so damaged that I had no control and kept falling over. For instance, if you notice you're going to fall, you kind of jerk. My body never recognized when I was tipping over that I was tipping over. I would just tip over and fall. It was so weird. I haven't run since, and I've had to learn to move my head very carefully, because if I tried to bend over to look for something underneath a table or whatever, I would often pass out. When I hit the back of my head twice, it is what I believed resulted in my constant dizziness and falling when I tried to run. The cerebellum is the main part of the brain that controls balance. The cerebellum is located at the back of the brain beneath the occipital lobes. We've talked about them before. And it is sometimes called the little brain because it looks like a smaller version of the cerebrum. The cerebellum controls balance by coordinating voluntary muscle movements and maintaining posture and equilibrium. And I will say I've gotten better. Anyway, with my balance. I believe our bodies are miracle healing machines and are programmed to heal. Some body parts heal better than others, for which I'm very grateful. I have learned to adjust. My body and brain has also. I believe the doctors who told me at the 1 year mark that I was as good as I was ever going to be wouldn't say that today. Scientists have called our brain a rewiring machine, and I've seen that happen. It is built to recover. The younger the person is when they have brain trauma, the greater their recovery is. Another consequence of the accident is that I get mentally exhausted easily. Just like any physical challenge, the brain can also be overworked. Being aware of these kinds of issues and making adjustments is being kind to yourself. Healthy self-care is not selfish. According to the dictionary, a concussion is a mild traumatic brain injury that affects brain function. Effects are often short-term and can include headaches and trouble concentrating, memory, balance, mood, and sleep. They are complex, concussions are, and often microscopic, so they can't be detected on a normal MRI or CT scan. These technologies have improved greatly since my accident. Concussion symptoms can appear immediately after a head injury or develop days later. My stroke happened about 5 days after the accident. In some cases, symptoms are not obvious for the first few days. It's important to look out for any problems in the days following a head injury. The number of concussions that occur each year in the United States varies depending upon your sources, but estimates range from 1.6 million to 3.8 million. Please, if you suspect you have a concussion, you should be evaluated by a professional, someone trained in the diagnosis and management of concussions. You can look online to see what the most generic treatments are for concussions, and they would include getting enough sleep or rest, because your brain needs to be resting to recover. There is a correlation between those two. They list a variety of activities to avoid, and those include hard concentration, especially those that make your symptoms worse, avoiding video games, watching TV, doing schoolwork, homework, reading, texting, using a computer, and for the first 2 days, no screen time. When we went down the rabbit hole of memory, we learned that the mind, when resting or napping, is when it transfers information from short-term memory to long-term memory. That's important to remember if you have a concussion. Maybe when we are more sensitive to the needs of our bodies, we can become healthier. Are you what you do? How would you describe yourself? How do you describe yourself when you are incapable of being who you used to be? I was frightened when I thought, oh, am I now? When I can't do anything that I used to be able to do. Well, you slowly begin to recreate yourself and who you are, and adjusting and doing things. And just because you can't do it exactly how you used to doesn't mean you can't do it. Getting creative in how you do things, and then coming to the understanding that we aren't what we do. I heard the phrase that we are spiritual beings having a human experience or a physical experience. I learned that what is important are those you love and who love you. And love is what is important in this life and is what we should define ourselves. And remember, please, healthy self-care is not selfish. Thank you for spending this time with me. And please join me again when Granny goes down the rabbit hole. Thank you.